Hi, Husnah. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. I'm really honored to have you on here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I mean, just knowing a little bit about the background of why you started this kind of makes me want to share my story even more because of the African stereotypes that need to be broken and just the inspiring so many people around the world is something I ought to do with the life that I've been given. So I'm very, very excited to hop onto this podcast and tell my story.
No, that's great. And I'm just wondering, where are you sitting at the moment?
I am in Kampala, Uganda, and that's where I live, train, and do everything.
That's great. I actually have never been there, but I would really like to visit at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
So, one of the things that I have to mention, I've been following you for a few years now, and I sort of, every time I see a post or a picture of you or somebody tagging you, I notice your smile. Like you always have this wide, full teeth smile and a beaming face. And I must say, it's just something that I sort of associate with you. I think the impression that it gives me is like a very relaxed confidence that shines through always from your posts, from anything about you that I've read so far. So, yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. Growing up, I didn't really have things that would make me smile that much because I was always looked at differently. So I'd always try to hide my hand, making me feel really uncomfortable. But when I started swimming, I started to gain more confidence. And to me, the smile just came so naturally because I feel like it's something that's always been there my whole life. I just needed something to bring it out of me and express those happy and fun moments that every person should ever experience in their life. So it's nice to know that people are noticing that smile.
I definitely noticed it, and it's something that I always like make a note of. And I know that you are also a normal teenager who has now finished high school. So you just wrote your final exams, right? Just recently. How was that? And what are you doing now during the break?
It was quite tough, to be honest, because this year has been really, really busy for me. I had to prepare for those final exams and also the Paralympic Games all within the same period of time. So there was a point where I had first put the books aside for a month to focus on the Paralympic Games in Paris. But then as soon as I returned, there was only about a month left until my final exam started. So I had to first put swimming aside and then focus on that. So it was difficult, but I managed to pull through because I'm very, very determined to succeed in both swimming and in my academics because I do not only want to be a professional swimmer, a Paralympian, anything to do with swimming. I do not only want to succeed in that, but I also want to be a pediatrician or something in the medical field when I'm older because I've always had a passion for science and biology and medicine because of how my disability came about. So in order to succeed both, I have to make sure I'm doing both right. So it was tough on either end, but hopefully I'm able to succeed in the end because, the Paralympics went well. Now, can't wait to see how these go.
No, I'm really glad to hear that. And I think that's a really nice introduction to also give of yourself. You are aware that asking people about their adapt stories is something that I am really interested in.
Mhm.
And your adapt story, I guess, before you became a professional Paralympic swimmer, can you maybe tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did you grow up? What shaped those years of you growing up? And how did you get to this point? Like, what was little Husna up to, before? And she then went into the world of swimming. So I think it would be really nice just to see that before the Paralympic professional swimmer phase.
Growing up, I wasn't really treated like a different kid. Like all my relatives just treated me like any other normal child. If I did something wrong, I was punished accordingly. If I did something right, of course, I was rewarded the same way. If just they treated me normally, so I didn't realize that I was different from anyone else. Not until when I was about 5 years old, when I realized that, oh, I'm actually different from anyone else, because it was around the time when I was more into school. I started swimming when I was about 3 years old, just playing around in the water in nursery school. So when I joined primary school at around the age of 5, and then I noticed all these kids who are staring at me, I started to become more self-aware that, oh, wait, there's something that's different about me, because all these kids are whispering, these guys are pointing fingers. So that's actually what made me start putting on a sweater to try and hide my hand, to try and be normal. So yeah, that definitely depleted my confidence a lot. I would always be really, really shy. I was not very interactive in class or even just in school in general. And I remember a teacher in my class noticed that. And I remember she'd always endeavor to have lunch with me, to have breaks with me whenever she can, and also try her best to treat me like all my other classmates. So I guess that teacher kind of instilled a bit of confidence in me, because she started to treat me normally other than the other teachers. So my confidence was really, really down. I was shy. I found it really hard to interact with new people. Not until I started maybe swimming, because it was always something that I always loved. I would go swimming with my cousins, with my siblings. And at the pool, it was more of, if I go into the water, no one will really see that I don't have a hand unless I come out. That's how it was. So eventually I got confidence around the pool, because, I could just be in the water most of the time and then get out and then swaddle myself up in a towel and no one would see anything. And no one would know except for my cousins. So yeah, that was a huge confidence and self-esteem issue that I had, until I started to become more into competitive swimming, where I could you just feel free around the people who are at the pool, because they've already seen you like swim. When your hand comes out with water in the freestyle, they're going to see that for sure. So eventually I became more and more confident in myself. I started, I lost my sweater at some point, and my mom refused to buy me a new one. So, because she was trying to bring out that confidence in me that I was lacking. And eventually, even just my sporting achievements being all over the news and everything, I became sort of a celebrity at school. So I started to make more friends, interact more with people, because then I started to feel less shy and more confident and more outgoing, which I still am now, most of the time.
No, that's very good to know. And I'm just wondering, what is the actual condition with your arm? Is it something that you were born with? Can you explain a little bit about, yeah, how that came about?
I was born with my disability. I have no lower right arm below the elbow and only three complete fingers. So three complete fingers are a thumb, the index finger, and the middle finger. Yeah. So yeah, that's my condition, and yeah, I was born with it. So I
Yeah.
haven't known it any different. So there's usually people ask me, have you ever wished that you had a second hand? I'm like, well, I haven't really known what it's like to have a second hand, so I can't wish for something I've never known to have. So yeah, that's always been what runs through my head.
That's true. You were the youngest at the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics, and you were representing Uganda, and you also represented Uganda again this year at the Paris Paralympics. Like you said, it's probably changed your life in some ways. Can you maybe also tell me about your journey towards 2020 Tokyo Paralympics, competing for the first time as a 14-year-old? I think that's really fascinating. Congratulations.
Thank you. The journey leading up to that was, first of all, me discovering swimming in the first place, discovering that there is swimming for people with disabilities. So that was around 2018 when I went for my first Paraswimming classification in Nairobi. And while I was there, I got to see almost a lot of different types of disabilities, even worse than my own condition. And that kind of inspired me to actually look more into it. So I started to get more excited. I went on YouTube. I watched almost all the previous Paralympic games. And of course, there were certain swimmers that really stood out to me, especially the ones who had very similar disabilities to mine. Actually, my current role model, Ellen King, was one of the first swimmers I discovered while going through all those YouTube videos of paraswimming. So after that, it was now starting to feel like, oh wait, I'm actually an official international paraswimmer. So the classification. So then I started looking forward to World Series, World Championships, and then the Paralympic Games. So then it was 2018, so 2 years later was going to be the Paralympic Games. So I went for my first World Series, and I got to meet all these star swimmers that I was watching on YouTube, and I was almost starstruck. I was about 11 years old. Can imagine an 11-year-old in an environment of people who were in their 20s, almost 30s. So I was starstruck. I was really, really nervous. I had no idea what I was doing or what I was going to do. All I knew is that I'm going in that pool to do my best and just represent my country. So then I went for my first World Championships in London, which were the qualifiers for the Paralympic Games in 2020. In 2019, I was 12 years old, and I was also the youngest at those World Championships. And it was very, very nerve-wracking because I was sitting in the same room as all these Paralympic and gold medalists. So I was like, how how did I end up here? What am I doing here? Am I even worthy of being here? In my head, I was thinking, you know what? You've already come this far, so you might as well just dive into the pool and do your best. And I guess I've always kept that in my head, especially when I realize I'm the youngest here in the room, and the most that I can do is just do my best in the situation that I have been given. So then after the World Championships, I was almost certain actually that I'm going for the Paralympic Games, but on wild card because I was the only representative from Uganda. So then I went back home after those championships, trained, applied for that wild card slot and training for the events that I would get on that wild card. So of course those would be very, very limited, mostly freestyle events. And knowing myself, freestyle is not always my favorite event. It's more of the 100 meters breaststroke. So I was like, I have to get out of my comfort zone and train for this event, even though it's not my favorite. So then fast forward to, I think, early 2020, COVID-19 comes up. Schools closed, gyms are closed, swimming pools are closed. Everyone's at home. Everywhere is locked down. And we weren't certain, we weren't sure whether the Paralympics was still going to happen, which kind of made me sad because I was going to be the youngest, one of the youngest almost ever in history to be at the Paralympic Games at the age of 13. So I was very, very sad, but I still knew that there's no way they can cancel Paralympic Games. Like, it's not possible in any way. So of course I had to keep training. So I would go on runs around the neighborhood with my mom to try and keep up my fitness. Maybe gym trainings at home on Zoom with my coach. And basically home became almost a whole gym setup in the living room and then a Zoom camera. And then almost every day I go on runs with both my mom and dad and my brothers, which was also a bonding moment, even though it was something that I strive to work on so that when the season starts up again, I'm ready and set to go. I need to be very, very ready for when the Paralympics are coming up because they may be on short notice because no one has no idea if they're coming, if being postponed or anything like that. So then the news comes out, they were postponed. And that made me feel really, really sad in a way because I was very, very excited as a 13-year-old to just go and travel all the way to Tokyo, all the way to Japan, and just be at the Paralympic Games for the first time in my swimming career, which just started about 2 years ago, which is very, very crazy. So I was sad. I kind of lost motivation for a while. And then eventually, the opportunity to actually qualify and not go on wild card for these games came up. because since they were postponed to 2021, they had to bring in more other international competitions to prepare the athletes for those final games. So then in 2021, early 2021, I went for a World Series in Sheffield. And this time I went with the goal of making the qualification time for the 100 breaststroke, which is my favorite event. So then I go into the pool thinking to myself, the goal time is 1 minute and 37 seconds. But even though I go 1 microsecond slower, I can't go. So in my head, I was thinking, oh, I have to really, really, really work hard and make sure that I make the time. I dive into the pool. I swim my heart out. And when I get out, I'm more of, did I make the time? Because I can't see the results board without my glasses. So I just immediately got out, went to the swim down pool. I didn't even try to think about something that would stress me. And then as soon as I finished my swim down, I got out and I see my mom standing there, and I can't tell her facial expression. Is she excited? Is she worried? Is she, disappointed? So I get out and I'm like, what time was it? And she tells me you went 1 minute and 36 seconds, which is 1 second faster than the actual qualification time. So in that moment, I was so excited. Even though I had other events coming up, I was like, that's the only one that I really cared about. So the others, I'm going to do really, really well in them, but I've made the goal. I've made the purpose that I came to this competition for, and that's all that matters. I have qualified for the Paralympic Games. That not only made history for paraswimming in Uganda, but even just swimming fraternity in general in Uganda. There's no swimmer or paraswimmer that has ever actually qualified for a Paralympics or Olympic Games. So that was amazing. In general, that was so amazing. I was very, very excited. I remember being awarded with a nice meal at the airport on the way back. It's because it was something that had never been achieved by any Ugandan ever in swimming. So then I come back home. I start training really, really hard for the Paralympic Games. And since it was still kind of locked down because school was mostly online at this point, it was very, very hard to access the pool when some roads were closed. So we asked for help from some corporate people, for example, like Hotel Africana, which is a hotel in Uganda, which has a standard 25-meter pool, which is the best pool we have in almost the biggest size pool we have in Uganda. Even though I went to compete 50 meters, I still train 25 meters in Uganda. So while we were there, we asked them for some help. Is it okay if we could get maybe a discount to stay in one of like the apartment buildings so that it's easy to go to and from training without having to worry about the blocked roads or anything like that? So they were very, very generous. They helped out even with the swimming pool and the gym facility. So for about a month, I was there on some sort of training camp leading up to the Paralympic Games. And then I think it was really, really helpful because it got my mind set straight. Even though I was still doing online school, I knew I was focused on the main goal, that was the Paralympic Games, without any other external distractions. And then fast forward, the Paralympic Games come in, and I'm the youngest athlete. I didn't even know that before going into the games until I got there. When I got there, and people told me, "Oh, no," my mom told me, "Did you know that you're the youngest athlete here?" And I said, "No, you're lying." I was honestly in shock, but that also brought a lot of nerves for me in a way because I'm going to be around people who have years of experience in just competition, in swimming competitions, in the Paralympics. People who have trained 4 years, 5 years actually, to come for these games, yet I've trained for maximum 3. So it was nice. Actually, I trained for, come to think of it, I trained for 2 years for the Paralympic Games. No, 3 years. And yet there's people out there who are training for 5 years who got an extra year of training. So I was like, whoa, how am I going to be able to compete against these guys? So then I was there with just the one event that I qualified for, the 100 breaststroke. When the moment came out, it was actually the first day. Then it was an event on the first day of the competition. I remember just diving into that pool and just giving it my all, and I managed to cut 2 seconds of my time. So from 1 minute 36 seconds to 1 minute 34 seconds, which shows, that I'm progressing in the sport. Even though I didn't make any huge achievement like going for the finals or getting a Paralympic medal, to me that was enough because I made a personal best in an environment, lots and lots of pressure. So yeah, that was after that I just hung around, had fun, and experienced the Paralympic village to the best that I could under the situation that it was in.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's a really, lovely way of also just giving us your perspective, because often what is shown is the end point. So when you are at the Paralympics and you're achieving what you're achieving, but the story behind it is not often told. So thanks, and thanks for that. And I'm just wondering, I mean, you mentioned a few things. The first one is the challenges of training, not just during COVID, but also, is it just one 50-meter pool in the whole country, or is it that there was no 50-meter pool at all?
There's one 50-meter pool in the whole country, and it's in one of the most expensive places to go to in Uganda. So it's a very challenging place to go to. So if I'm to train
Is it a
there,
public pool?
yeah, it's a public pool. So I only train there once a week just to try and get that environment straight. But I feel like that's not enough for a professional swimmer like me. So it gets very, very tough when you have a competition coming up and it's 50 meters and you're training 25. So that challenge
Yeah.
happens a lot. So hopefully in the future, Uganda, because we've talked to the federations about it. So hopefully in the future, that challenge is rectified as Uganda swimming keeps growing.
Okay, no, that's good. I mean, also now that it's 4 years later, I'm just wondering also if things have improved in some way, which, because like you said, you not only brought something new to swimming and also the Paralympics, but you kind of probably changed the scene of swimming in Uganda. So I guess that hopefully drives changes and also gives you access to better facilities. What kind of changes do you see, like between 2020 and now that you've also actually done your second Paralympics this year? Are there changes you see?
Yeah, there are changes, but they're not very huge. In terms of facilitation of the athletes, this year they were generous compared to the Paralympic Games because during that COVID season, I guess it was difficult for them to find funds to maybe help the athletes with their trainings and supporting them in every way possible. But this time they were quite helpful in terms of just providing facilitation to go for training, to take care of ourselves as athletes. And in terms of the facilities, though, the swimming pools are still the same. They haven't really looked much into that Olympic size standard swimming pool. And of course, we keep complaining about it, but it's something that really takes a lot of time, I guess, to improve on. But we shall keep fighting for it until it's given to us. But there haven't been any really major changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess you are already an advocate for that. Yeah, and now I'm gonna take you back. So you, like you said, you love to go swimming with your cousins. You competed in some events, some local events, and then later on international events. But at that point, you had not become a national icon, so to say, or a national professional swimmer in that sense. How has that changed then from your first Paralympics to your whole experience at school, with your friends, with people in general? How has your lives changed?
Um, First of all, I became sort of a celebrity at school. My school environment was, of course, very, very supportive. My teachers were very excited for me. They were happy for me. My friends, even twice as excited for me. So it was actually life changing in a way because now I actually realize that I have lots and lots of responsibility in terms of advocating for para sports in Uganda and especially paraswimming because I went there as a singular paraswimming athlete. So one of my dreams is to actually go with a team and represent Uganda as a team, which is something we've been working on since then. It's not very, very easy considering lots of people with disabilities in Uganda are they don't really come out of their shadows, if you know what I'm saying. Like most of them are afraid that if they do come out, they won't get the similar opportunities like an able-bodied person, they would be discriminated. So they try to avoid situations like that by just hiding. So it's been very, very difficult to get them out of hiding. But I would say there has been a huge change. We actually have a couple of swimmers we're looking at. There's hopefully in LA, we'll be able to come with a team, which is the goal actually. And mostly just when I came back, I realized that I need to actually take the disability awareness advocacy really, really seriously. Even though I had become sort of a celebrity, I had to use the celebrity platform for making good change. So that was actually what I realized most when I came back. There's still a lot to do in terms of growing Paralympic sport in Uganda.
I know that's really good to know. And, I mean, I think that you've mentioned one of the things that you've said repeatedly is actually that in water, there is no discrimination. And you also said how in your adapt story that you, for the first time when you were in the pool, you felt like, yeah, nobody could really see. So it didn't actually matter whether you had your hand or not. And so this is just, I think, something that makes me wonder, do you feel like people see much more about your identity than just the disability you have? Um, or do you feel like this platform has given you a chance to also now show the multiple levels of you? I mean, it sounds like you're not just interested in swimming. You are also a normal teenager at the end of the day. And like, what are the other parts of you that you would like people to know that are not just limited to your arm? And is that ever a thing for you? Is that something you think about, you feel, or what is your thought on that?
But yes, people have started to look at me beyond just my disability. And I find that really amazing, really nice because you shouldn't, as they say, judge a book by its cover. Usually, when people look at people with disabilities, they think, oh, that person is so disadvantaged, they can't do this, they can't do that. Instead of looking at, oh, wait, they can't do this, they do that, they can do whatever they actually put their mind to, like I have been able to. Just when a person sees me without a hand swimming, they also think to themselves, what's stopping me from swimming? I have two hands, I have two legs. What's not happening? So I guess just seemingly breaking those barriers and showing the world that I am able is something that every person with a disability strives to do. And I guess outside of the pool, I'm more of a calm individual and not very hyper, to be honest. And I love watching movies. I read lots of books, novels specifically, and even some self-help books, which I've been more into just recently. Outside the pool, I'm a really smiley person. I like smiling. Even when it's the most awkward situation, I'll still smile because there's always a glimmer of happiness even in the worst situations ever because that's what we always do is appreciate life. So yeah, people have started to look differently, of course. And that's how it should always be. Should first get to know me first, know that I can do this, I can do that, rather than looking at my disability and thinking, oh, they can't do this.
That's really great. And I know that Uganda celebrated independence just recently on the 9th of October. I think it was
Hmm.
62 years. Like, what does that mean to you? But I'm also really curious because you're like you said at the beginning, you were representing the whole country. You were also representing people with disabilities in a way. You were also representing Paris swimmers. And yeah, what does independent for Uganda mean to you and celebrating it? It looked like you were really proud to celebrate it.
It's always an honor to represent one's country and just wave the flag up high with lots and lots of pride, because Uganda is an amazing country with hospitable people, a hospitable environment. The weather is amazing. So just me being able to represent a country with so much that it has is an honor, and it's a privilege that not everybody gets to do. And I'm honestly just honored and excited because I've only been alive for Uganda's independence for 17 years. So the 17 years that I have been living in Uganda have been amazing. And the stories that I've had about Uganda's independence, where it came from to where it is today, are very interesting. And it's honestly, what I can say is it's always an honor to represent one country, because it's your heritage, it's your culture, it's where you come from, it's who you are. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really great. And I'm wondering, you said you really love to read novels. Are you reading any Ugandan writers?
Not it. I've been more into
Okay.
like romance novels, adventure novels, that type of line of work. And then I've started reading this book written by my role model, Ellen Keane, because I've always been really, really curious about how she became the way she is, how she ended up being this multi Paralympian with such an amazing confidence, outstanding, just everything about her has always just made me feel really, really inspired. So when she sent me a copy of her book after some interactions with her, I I've been reading it, and so far it's something that I really, really relate to. So that's the current book I'm reading. It's called The Copy is Too Far From Me, but it's perfectly imperfect. That's what I'm reading now.
Okay, no, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I always keep in mind or I find like really interesting is how you are balancing, being a 17-year-old and schoolwork, like you said, and also now the Paralympics and all the other events. I mean, you do many other events outside of the Paralympics. So I'm just thinking, like, what are your future plans? What are you now going to do? I guess after your high school career, you said you want to be a pediatrician.
Of course, continue on with swimming and succeed very, very highly, hopefully with a Paralympic medal, fingers crossed. And become a pediatrician, because first and foremost, I've always loved kids. And in case, being a pediatrician maybe is not my actual future plan that, by the time I enter university, I still want to do something within the medical field, because I've always been intrigued as to how people with congenital disabilities come about. Can they be detected early? Can they be changed on time? Is it possible to fix them? Is it like, how come sometimes they're not detected on time? Things like that. Because from the story of how I came about, of how I ended up being born with a physical disability, is that my mom did every possible thing you do when you're pregnant. You go for all the tests and all the scans and everything, but nothing was detected until after I was born. And then the disability was seen. So thinking about just that whole thing in general has always drawn me to the medical field. So hopefully something to do with medicine and a Paralympic medal in the future, hopefully. And of course, continued disability awareness in Uganda. My mom and dad are currently working on creating a foundation where we help rising para athletes, especially children who want to be interested in parasport, help them discover what sport that they feel most drawn to and support them from the grassroots, unlike how my journey started.
I think that's great. That's fantastic. I will definitely be following that foundation. And I think right now you are on your holiday break. What are you up to? Are you reading every day, or what is your normal life like?
I went back to swimming again as soon as I finished my exams. So a normal day for me right now is I train from 5 to 6:30 because there's still some of my other swim mates who are still going to school. So I train with the team from about 5 to 6:30, and they come home and take a nice nap after having breakfast, of course. And then I read some books, watch a couple of movies. I read like a couple of pages from the book. I watch a movie, relax, and then have lunch, and then go back to the pool for an evening session. Yeah, that's a current day in my life. It's very minimal, but it's very much needed because of the very tough days where I had to swim, school, and swim again, and come back and do homework, and then wake up again to swim. So it's common now, and I guess I'm just embracing the whole holiday thing.
Yeah. I do want to mention I did see that you did a school visit where you were speaking to some children. They looked pretty young. And I thought that was really amazing because, like you said, it's something that you are an advocate for. But what is the feeling you've had since you've interacted with people, especially younger people, and shared your experiences? What do you think has been the effect of that on them and on you?
Yeah. I think when I speak to kids like that, mostly around my age range, or even younger, it encourages them to reach out for their dreams as soon as they can and be very hardworking and determined towards achieving them. Having achieved so much at such a young age, it should show them that if they work hard or twice as hard as me, or even thrice as hard, they can achieve even much, much more than anyone could ever perceive them to ever be able to achieve. So when I speak to them, it encourages them and also shows them that everything is possible. And for me on my side, it kind of helps me like put my voice to a good use instead of just sitting back and doing nothing. Because there's lots and lots of things that need to be advocated for in Uganda that people need to realize are possible, especially children, because they are the future of this country. They are the future of this world. We are the future of this world, considering that I'm still a child. But I guess when I go into the platform of telling people my story and showing them that I've been able to achieve this and that and travel almost to so many of the world's continents, it's an honor that I've been bestowed upon, and I make good use of it because I'm able to. And I wouldn't want to take something like that for granted when I have the platform and the ability to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like there is one thing that motivates you to keep doing what you're doing? Or is it, I mean, for some people, it's their family. For other people, it's just a drive to be better. What is your drive? What do you think keeps you going on those hard days when you don't have enough motivation or energy, or you've done a lot of schoolwork and you are not feeling great emotionally or mentally? Like, what is that part that drives you?
The drive to be better is always something that drives me. And when I feel like I'm not motivated to swim, I think about why I started swimming in the first place and what I'm able to achieve through swimming, or what I'm going to achieve if I do this swimming correctly. So the drive to be better every day, just to be the best and better and best version of myself, And also my mom really, really helps a lot because she is the one who drives me to and from the pool to school. Everywhere I go, she's usually the one who drives me around. And even the conversations we have in the car are in a way motivational because we think about a future that we see if I continue doing sports. So just the thought of succeeding and being the best version of myself and also the love that I have for swimming, I that's what keeps me going. Also, some of my role model because I see where they have reached and I want to be similar or just like them.
No, that's great. And is there anything like throughout this journey that you feel like, wow, I did not expect this? It was like a surprise to you, but it can be positive and negative, just something that has really thrown off your mental train, so to say, your expectation. It's something you just did not expect, and it was different from your expectation.
There's a lot, trust me, there's a lot that I did not expect. I never expected to travel all around the world like I have at the moment. So it's really, really amazing. I never expected to have such an amazing platform where I get to talk to people because normally I'm not the kind of person who talks a lot. So I'm very, very shocked at that. And I never expected to be so like outgoing and inspirational to such a huge number of kids or just people with or without disabilities. So there's a lot that I did not expect, but that's what the journey is all about. And I'm honestly having fun. I expected to have fun, but I did not expect to achieve this much. I knew I wanted to achieve something, but I didn't expect it to be this big. And I'm very, very happy that, God has given me this opportunity to just be myself and actually succeed from just being myself.
Yeah. No, that's really great. Thank you so much, Husna. I think this has been really fun for me to get to know you because I love connecting to these personal stories where you really hear the person and yeah, just the story behind you. And I really enjoyed that. So thanks for also being so open and for sharing it and for also narrating it quite well. And I appreciate your time and thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.